Feast of Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of Italy. He was born in 1181. His mother had him baptized Giovanni without the presence of his father, who was a busy merchant. When his father, Pietro Bernardoni, arrived from a trip to France, he renamed him Francisco di Pietro de Bernardoni. Francis enjoyed a very rich, easy life growing up because his father was a wealthy businessman. He was constantly happy, charming, and a born leader. When Francis was young, he became the leader of a crowd of young people who spent their nights in wild parties. It was said that Francis was also good at business, but he wanted more than wealth. He wanted to be a noble, a knight. He thought that battle was the best place to win the glory and prestige he longed for. He got his first chance when Assisi declared war on their longtime enemy, the nearby town of Perugia. Most of the troops from Assisi were butchered in the fight. Some who were wealthy, including Francis, were taken as prisoners to be ransomed. They were chained in a harsh, dark dungeon. After a year in the dungeon, Francis was ransomed. This experience didn't change him. He still went to parties. Francis longed for glory. He responded to a call for knights for the Fourth Crusade. But before he left, he had to have a suit of armor decorated with gold, with a magnificent cloak and a horse. It was not a problem because his father was wealthy. After a day's ride from Assisi, Francis had a dream in which God told him he had it all wrong and told him to return home. So he returned home. Francis was humiliated, laughed at, called a coward by the village, and raged at by his father for the money wasted on armor. Francis' conversion did not happen overnight. He started to spend more time in prayer. He went off to a cave and wept for his sins. Sometimes God's grace overwhelmed him with joy. One day, while riding through the countryside, Francis came face to face with a leper. Repelled by the appearance and the smell of the leper, he jumped down from his horse and kissed the hand of the leper. When his kiss of peace was returned, Francis was filled with joy. As he rode off, he turned around for a last wave and saw that the leper had disappeared. He always looked upon it as a test from God that he had passed. It was said that while Francis was praying in the ancient church at San Damiano, he heard Christ on the crucifix speak to him, "Francis, repair my church." Acting again in his impetuous way, he took fabric from his father's shop and sold it to get money to repair the church. Pietro, his father, saw this as an act of theft and dragged Francis before the bishop and in front of the whole town demanded that he return the money and renounce all rights as his heir. The bishop told him to return the money and said that God would provide. Francis not only gave back the money, but stripped off all his clothes until he was wearing only a hair shirt. In front of the crowd that had gathered, he said, "Pietro Bernardoni is no longer my father. From now on, I can say with complete freedom, Our Father, who art in heaven. Wearing nothing but cast-off rags, he went off into the freezing woods, singing. Francis renounced worldly goods and family ties to embrace a life of poverty. He begged for stones and rebuilt the San Damiano Church with his own hands. Francis preached about returning to God and obedience to the Church. Francis knew about the decay in the Church, but he always showed the Church and its people his utmost respect. It was said that Francis would talk to hundreds of birds about being thankful to God for their wonderful clothes, for their independence, and for God's care. Francis followed the gospel literally by following all that Jesus said and did, joyfully without limit, and without a sense of self-importance. Saint Francis was the founder of the Franciscan Orders of the Friars Minor, or the Fratrum Minorum, the Women's Order of St. Clare, the Poor Clares, and the Lay Third Order. He was also a leader of the movement of evangelical poverty in the early 13th century. His evangelical zeal, consecration to poverty, charity, and personal charisma drew thousands of followers. Saint Francis died October 3, 1226 in Assisi. He was canonized by Pope Gregory IX on 16 July 1228. His feast day is observed on 4 October. On 18 June 1939, Pope Pius XII named Francis a joint patron saint of Italy along with Catherine of Siena with the apostolic letter Licet Commessa. In 1979, Pope John Paul II recognized him as the patron saint of ecology.